What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the Neighborhood Podcast. We're the host of the podcast. My name is Kyle Dabro.
What's going on, everybody? Kevin Valentin here. Back from a 2-week hiatus, but we here, baby. We here.
Yeah, we had a couple hurricanes come by. I know if you guys have been paying attention to the weather the last couple of weeks, we had Hurricane Helene, and then we had Hurricane Milton. It's kind of been busy on that front for the last couple of weeks, but fortunately for us up here in Tampa, I know Kev got a little bit of it down in Fort Myers. Didn't you guys get like a couple tornadoes down there over by Colonial?
Random tornadoes. They kind of sprung around downtown Fort Myers, Colonial, by Cape Coral. There's a couple other ones like randomly in like Lehigh and stuff like that. But God bless, again, my family, my immediate friends, everybody's good. I'm more worried about, like, we were in contact, you and everybody else up there in Tampa. So I don't care about me. I'm worried about you and your parents.
No, honestly, everybody here made out pretty well. My apartment, as you could see, is perfectly fine. There's no damage here. And outside of like some minor like shingle damage on my parents' roof, we made out pretty well. Just like broken tree branches, but that was kind of like everywhere throughout Tampa. But overall, only lost power at my place for 2 days. My parents lost it for a day. So overall, like, we made out pretty well. And that's despite the fact that the eye went through Sarasota, which is only, it's only an hour drive away from me. So I know down there it's a completely different situation, but I got to say, like, the response to that hurricane was pretty noticeable. And trust me, like, those guys were working as hard as they could to restore like power and internet as fast as they could, and they did a really good job. So I really got to
shout out first responders, man.
Yeah, I really got to commend, like, all the linemen, all the emergency personnel. Like, they really stepped up, and I think for the most part everybody has their power back, and that storm hit like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. So
yeah,
it's pretty impressive. So obviously we had that to contend with, but we're back, and we're going to focus on some NFL games from this past weekend, and we're also going to talk about Kev's team. The New York Yankees have advanced to the World Series. It's the first time they've reached the World Series since 2009. They will go up against the Los Angeles Dodgers, which I know Kev will have plenty to talk about when we get to that point, but I know Kev is definitely giddy to see his team back in the spot where they get to compete for potentially their 28th championship as a member of the MLB, which is just absolutely insane. But we'll do a quick rundown of the NFL games. We'll start with the Lions winning a very close divisional game against the Minnesota Vikings. When you look at it, the Lions are one of the best teams in the NFL, and despite the fact that they lost Aiden Hutchinson the week before to a broken leg, they were still able to rally troops and get a game-winning field goal against the Vikings and hold on to the number one spot in the NFC North. After that, we'll talk about the Chiefs essentially beating down the 49ers on the road in spectacular fashion, remaining undefeated. Offensively, it was a little bit shaky from Patrick. This was not his best game by any stretch of the imagination, but they relied on the run game with Kareem Hunt, and their defense was outstanding, really limiting Brock Purdy and that 49ers offense to a rather pedestrian day. Like I said, the Chiefs remain undefeated, and they're still the number one team, not only in the AFC West, but in the AFC as a whole. After that, we'll talk about the Jets getting destroyed by the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's the first game that the Jets had Davante Adams after they traded for him. I think he finally was cool with leaving that situation in Vegas, because I don't think Vegas is going anywhere. But the same could be said for the Jets at this point. They're 2-5. They just got blown out by Russell Wilson in his first start as a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Kevin and I are basically going to discuss where the Jets go from here, because it really kind of seems like this team is just going nowhere fast, even though that you have some great players on the offensive side and the defensive side of the ball. But it just seems to not be working out in any way, shape, or form. After that, we'll wrap up the NFL portion of the episode with Deshaun Watson. If you guys had seen the replays of it, I'm pretty sure that everybody has seen it at this point, where basically his entire right calf looked like it exploded when his Achilles ruptured when they were playing against the Bengals. Obviously, his season has come to an end, but Kevin and I are going to dive a little bit more in depth about that, about whether or not that essentially Deshaun Watson's career is over at this point, just based off the fact that the Browns have not played well with him as their number one quarterback. And it really doesn't seem like the Browns are in any competitive space at this point. And it looks like another rebuild is imminent for this team. And that could come with Deshaun Watson. It may not come with Deshaun Watson, but we'll kind of dive into that a little bit more once we get later in the episode. And then we'll wrap it up with a preview of the World Series featuring the New York Yankees and the Los Angeles Dodgers. So that'll pretty much set the agenda. Kev, let's dive into the first topic at hand, and that is going to be the Lions defeating the Vikings by the score of 31-29. This is a great game. It was back and forth, and I got to say, the Lions, they had turnovers in this game. This was clearly not their best performance, and I got to give the Vikings credit. They were down multiple times in this game, but they were able to rally the troops and make it a competitive game. But at the end, Detroit put themselves in a position to line up a game-winning field goal and improve to 5-1 on the season. And at this point, they kind of have to, because the NFC North is just absolutely stacked with potentially. Kev, we were talking about this. We were texting each other. I mean, we could potentially see 3 playoff teams in one division this year, just because of how competitive this NFC North division is. So, Kev, to get this one to you, how would you assess the Detroit Lions at this point after knocking off the once undefeated Minnesota Vikings on the road? And do you think that there's a possibility that the Detroit Lions are the best team in the NFL at this current moment in time?
I mean, we all know based on last season's results, right? How last season ended for the Lions, to have that resurgence, to have that culture brought back to the city of Detroit with the team that they had assembled. This team was destined, as long as they kept the core together and made some additions to the secondary, which they did based on their GM and everything that they acquired this past offseason, that this team was 100% going to contend for a Super Bowl. They're showing it week in and week out. It's not the flashiest of games. It's not the craziest things outside of Dallas's ass whooping in Jerry World last week. The Lions are just finding ways to get it done. They're beating teams that people continue to show that they have doubt for or continue to predict that they're better than. And this was just another week to where Dan Campbell and those guys were ready to go. And that just goes to show that Jared Goff's playing some of the best football of his career. Maybe not from an overall statistical standpoint, like 4 touchdowns, 400 yards. But the thing is, he's accurate right now. He had a couple of turnovers early on in the season where I think at one point he had more interceptions than he had touchdown passes, but now he is kind of showing out. I believe he started the game off this past week 11 or 12 of 12, something of that sort, to where it was a ridiculous number, and he ended up 22 of 25. And there was another game earlier this season where he had like a total of 2 or 3 incompletions. So Jared Goff is doing what he needs to do as a leader, as a quarterback, and he's making sure that this team is ready. And like Kyle said, despite Aiden Hutchinson going down with a season-ending injury, this team is finding ways to get things done, whether that's forcing turnovers, finding ways to get to the quarterback, making things happen on both sides to show that they can actually compete for a championship. And when you talk about the Minnesota Vikings, they were undefeated. They were probably one of, if not the best team in football. That defense found a way to turn it around with Brian Flores coming in as that defensive coordinator. And they also found ways to get to Jared Goff. There were a couple times where they forced some fumbles. Obviously, Detroit was lucky enough to recover most of them. But on the opposite side to where Detroit was still allowing pressure, that offensive line was susceptible to some of the blitz packages that Brian Flores, we all know and love, that dials up. I mean, for someone that loves defensive games, he's a coordinator that's going to bring it to you every single time. So there was some competition. As Kyle said, this game went back and forth. It obviously started off with Minnesota jumping up to a 10-0 lead early on in the first quarter. But of course, what happens? Detroit goes on and responds with 21 unanswered points. And then, of course, Minnesota does not score in that second quarter. So again, great game. The NFC North is absolutely incredible. I would say more than likely I'm not going to weigh this as the Vikings being a bad football team as opposed to the Lions being a good football team. I think this was a division rivalry. This was to show people that the Lions were for real. This was also to show that it can be done within their division. And I to be honest with you, this was a fantastic sign. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a great game. Jahmyr Gibbs had a great game. David Montgomery got hurt early on, but did return to this game. And again, Jared Goff played absolutely exceptional. So when I talk about this game, I did get to see tidbits as I was watching the Colts game because it did air on the same time. But overall, anytime I tuned in or flipped back or was in that quad box for Sunday Ticket or YouTube TV, this was a must-see game. And every time I tuned in, it was electric. So for the NFC North, this is great. For football, this is great. And obviously for the NFL rankings, this does shake things up just a little bit. But like Kyle said, by the end of the season, there could definitely be 3 playoff teams coming out of the NFC North.
Well, and that's really how I kind of look at it at this point, just because but these teams are going to face each other twice this year. And this is obviously the first matchup, with the first matchup being in Minnesota. And the fact that it was this competitive, that it was that electrifying to see really the surprise team in my mind, the Minnesota Vikings, get to the point where they start the season undefeated. And you look at the Lions coming off of an NFC Championship appearance last year, they're still continuing their excellence going into this game. And then, when they really needed to make the plays that needed to be made to put themselves in a position for that game-winning field goal, that Lions offense led by Jared Goff was able to put those guys in a position where they were able to get the win. And getting a huge road win against a team like the Vikings is impressive. And like you said, Kev, doing it against a defensive-minded coach like Brian Flores as the Vikings DC, that's really impressive to me, because when you look at that Vikings defense, they have had multiple games this year where they have shut down opposing quarterbacks pretty consistently. But this was one game where I thought Jared Goff really rose to the occasion. It was able to expose some weaknesses that other teams may exploit in that Vikings defense as we go a little bit further into the season. But, when I look at the Lions, it was a gritty win. They really relied on not only Jared Goff through the air, but getting great contributions from the ground. And like Kevin mentioned, Jahmyr Gibbs had a great game. David Montgomery did have a costly fumble that turned into, I believe it was a scoop and score. Obviously, you never want to see that if you're a fan of the Lions. But overall, despite whatever issues that the Lions faced in this game, they were able to overcome them and put themselves in a position to win. And really just to kind of expand on how I see this division playing out, this is going to be a really good division. And I do think that the Lions are the best team in the division right now. You can make a case at this point that the Lions are the best team in the NFL with the way that they're playing offense. Jared Goff has been lighting it up. I mean, I could just look at his stats right here, just in the last 4 games. Against Arizona, he only had 5 incompletions. Against Seattle, he didn't have a single incompletion, 18 of 18. Against Dallas, he only had 7 incompletions. And in this last game against the Vikings on the road, he only had 3 incompletions. He is completing over 75% of his passes in the last 4 games, and the one game in particular where he was able to complete 100% of his passes against Seattle, with them just lighting up the scoreboard, scoring 42 points. The one thing that I like about the Lions against some of the other teams in the division within the NFC North is that they're able to win multiple ways. They're able to win in a gritty fashion, like we saw against Minnesota, where it's a back and forth game. Their back may be up against a wall, and yet they're still able to make the plays and execute at a high level. And then there's been other games where they're lighting up the scoreboard. You look at the Seattle game, you look at the Dallas game, they put up 40 plus in those 2 games. And then you look at a team like Arizona, granted it wasn't their best performance on the road, but they responded well after losing to the Bucs the week before. And it was just a gritty all-around team win where Jared Goff and the offense played well enough to win, but they relied on their defense to make plays and step up when needed to, especially against a really good quarterback, against Kyler Murray. Granted, that was earlier in September. At this point, we're almost into November. But it's wins like that that really can spark a team and could really generate some momentum moving forward. Overall, the Lions are a really good team. And I'll touch a little bit on the Vikings here. Just because they lost this game, this is not something that I'm going to really hold against the Vikings. You had a chance to win. Your defense needed to step up to make some plays in the end. Unfortunately, they couldn't do it. Jared Goff was able to execute on that last drive to set them up for that field goal. But you look at how the Vikings have started this year. They've had a fantastic start. Sam Darnold has been playing competent quarterback play. They're getting great contributions from Aaron Jones on the ground. Justin Jefferson continues to dominate secondaries left and right. It doesn't really matter who they match him up against. He's able to exploit either those one-on-one matchups or zone coverages, just finding those soft spots in opposing defenses. And he's able to do it time and time again. And I do think that the Vikings will be able to respond after, a really tough loss. They do have a quick turnaround. I do believe they played the Los Angeles Rams on Thursday night, so they're going to have to put this game behind them sooner rather than later and get back to it against the Rams on Thursday. But overall, great game. And I'm really looking forward to not only the Lions and the Vikings potentially playing each other again. They'll play each other later in the season just because they're in the same division. But I really think that these divisional matchups that we're going to see in the NFC North this year are going to be absolutely electric. There's just so many games to be had between, the Lions and the Packers, you got the Lions and the Bears, you got the Lions and the Vikings, and all those teams will play each other in one way or another throughout the season, twice, since they're both in the same division. But overall, great win for the Lions, and I do think that the Vikings will be able to respond to a tough loss at home this past week.
Hey, we said a multitude of times since Dan Campbell has gotten there, the culture shift has been astronomical. And this is why coaching in this league is so pivotal. This isn't something to where you say, oh, well, I have an offensive minded coach. I have a no. Sometimes you need a gritty coach. People like a Rex Ryan, people like a Dan Campbell, someone that's going to get in your face, that's going to just ruffle some feathers and absolutely 180 degrees flip this team from what it was, which was poverty for the last 30 to 40 years outside of Barry Sanders back in the 90s, to what it is right now. And that is competitive, that is gritty, that is tough, that is, for Jared Goff's all intents and purposes, that is accurate. This was Calvin Johnson and Matthew Stafford, screw it, Calvin's down there somewhere type of offense, to where they're running trick plays for offensive linemen when they go up 30, to where they have a two-headed monster in the backfield that want to now be known as Sonic and Knuckles and refer to the Sonic the Hedgehog games. And then you have a defense to where, even though they lost their best player, they're finding ways to create turnovers. When people say that it is about execution and players and talent in sports, without a doubt. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like the players don't actually have to go out there and execute. Kyle and I were athletes in high school. Kyle and I we did what we needed to do. And there were just some players on our teams that were just lights out better than us. And if they weren't on the field, it wasn't even close. But there were, and always will be coaches that just shift and change the mentality for some of these athletes. And that's what Detroit has in Dan Campbell. So I really want to give him his flowers, because there's a lot of times where he's up for the conversation of Coach of the Year. And I understand that a mind like Kevin Stefanski and doing what he did with Joe Flacco last year was great. But the Lions were one of the worst teams in NFL history. And they went to the NFC Championship game. And Dan Campbell did not win Coach of the Year. I just wanted to make a tidbit about it, because what we have seen from this team in the last 2.5 years, almost 3 years, is that they're not the Detroit Lions of old. And yes, they have some players that are fantastic, but the buck starts with Dan Campbell, and he needs to be given the respect he deserves.
Well, and here's the thing. Like, when it comes to Dan Campbell, obviously he deserves a tremendous amount of respect and a tremendous amount of praise for how far he's gotten this team along in such a relatively short period of time. Granted, it did not start out very well, Kev.
No,
he was in the mindset that this was going to be a process, that this was going to take time. And now you're starting to see essentially the fruits of his own labor, and really the fruits of the individual players' labor as well, because it's them going out there and showing what they're capable week in and week out. And the one thing that I'll say about Dan Campbell when it comes to his overall coaching style, he's demanding the most that he can get out of his players without doing it in a demeaning fashion. Somebody was talking about that this past weekend. I thought that was a very interesting quote, and I think it's true. He's going out there. He's not afraid to wear his emotions on his sleeve.
Nope.
Which I think the players respect. And I think as long as schematically, when it comes to the game plan is concerned, as long as it's set up well on both sides of the ball and he's putting guys in a position to execute at a high level, it's the best that you could do. The players have to go out there and make the plays, but it's the coach's responsibility to make sure that he puts the players in the right spots at the right individual time. And overall, it's been showing at this point. They're a gritty team. I love it when they're running with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, just because it seems like whenever they're running the ball consistently, that offensive line is getting at least 3 to 4 yards of push almost every single play. And that's giving great opportunities to David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. And I know that they're a little bit different. David Montgomery is more like the Thunder, and Jahmyr Gibbs is more like the Lightning. You have that Thunder Lightning combo. But overall, you have that. You combine it with what Jared Goff is doing at the quarterback spot. I mean, really, like, you really can't ask much more from what the offense is doing. And the defense is doing enough to make plays, force turnovers, and get the ball back to Jared Goff in the offense. And I mean, at this point, this is one of the best offenses in the NFL, because, I mean, Kev, the last 3 weeks, they've scored over 30 plus. I mean, obviously, they had the 240 bombs against Dallas and Seattle. But if they keep this up, man, they're going to be a very tough out. So, for the rest of the NFC, they're definitely going to have to keep they're literally going to have to keep their head on a swivel when it comes to the Lions, because the Lions are definitely going to present them a lot of problems when they face them at whatever sort of point in the season. But overall, it's just a great win, and I can't wait to see these two teams in the Lions and the Vikings match up. I think it's going to be a very fun matchup whenever these two teams get at it. And you could say the same for the rest of the division, just because the rest of the division is really strong at this point. But with that said, we'll continue to our next game, and that is going to be the 49ers and the Chiefs. So obviously this was
I got you.
Floor is yours. Go right ahead.
The Kansas City Chiefs obviously won the Super Bowl last year. They're 6-0. But it's not because of Patrick Mahomes going crazy with his normal Patrick Mahomes-esque performances of 400-plus yards, 4 touchdowns, and whatever have you. This is led solely and wholeheartedly by this team's defense. And that showed in volume against one of the better teams in the NFC, or should I say, one of the teams that should be the better teams in the NFC, in the San Francisco 49ers, in this Super Bowl rematch. So, Kyle, from what you saw in this rematch of sorts, because I can't really call it that because Brock Purdy just looks so bad, what would you take away from Kansas City's undefeated run thus far, and can San Francisco find a way to get it together despite all their injuries?
I mean, when it comes to the Chiefs at this point, they're winning gritty. That's the best way that I could put it, because from an offensive perspective, they're not what I would consider a high-flying offense at this point. Kev, I can't believe I'm saying this. Patrick Mahomes, we're not halfway through the season yet, but we're kind of getting close to that point. He has 6 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. If this were any other team, you're probably looking at a sub-500 team with quarterback stats like that. And, granted, his completion percentage is around 68%, so he's still completing a high percentage or a high volume of his throws. But from the passing game perspective, he's been rather subpar this year. But in the end, it doesn't really matter, because you still have a great offensive mind in Andy Reid, and he's able to make adjustments and rely on the run game. You look at this past game against the 49ers, granted, this was not Pat's best game. But you know who they relied on? Kareem Hunt. They relied on the run game. And Kareem Hunt, I mean, they brought him off the street a couple of weeks ago, brought him on the practice squad, and then got him into the game day lineup relatively quick. And he's showing that he's still a capable running back in the NFL. And I got to say, the Chiefs' offensive line, they're getting push. You go up against a team like the 49ers, who have a pretty solid defense, and the 49ers really couldn't contend with that run game whatsoever. It was really kind of astonishing to see just how this team in the Kansas City Chiefs can be able to morph from such a high-flying passing offense just a couple years ago with Patrick Mahomes to where now they're kind of more of a run-heavy offense, and they're doing a pretty solid job at it, to the point where not only are they winning games, Kev, they're still undefeated. It's really kind of astonishing that they're still playing high-level football enough to the point where they're undefeated, even though that we're not seeing MVP numbers from Patrick. You combine that with the fact that I think Steve Spagnuolo is really the unsung hero of this team from a coaching perspective. I mean, I could sit here and say that Steve Spagnuolo is still one of the best, if not the best, defensive coordinator in the NFL, simply just because he's able to stop opposing offenses by just setting up the game plans appropriately, to the point where you have opposing quarterbacks who just look completely lost at times with different blitz packages that he's bringing, setting certain disguises, setting certain stunts with the defensive line on pass rushes. He just presents challenges to opposing offenses and opposing quarterbacks that gives those guys fits. And I look at this game with Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy had no answer in this game, just because there were just some inadvertent throws where he's throwing it into bad windows. He's missing guys on his reads. He's not picking up defensive guys that are covering certain areas, and he's throwing interceptions. This was really just, all in all, a well-rounded performance from not only the run game on the offense, but the defense stepped up, especially their secondary, just because they were able to lock down San Francisco's wide receivers pretty well throughout the game. And moving forward, when it comes to the Chiefs, as long as they're able to keep that run game at a high level, keep it at a consistent pace, they're going to be able to continue to win games. Hopefully we would see Pat improve on his numbers, because at this point, it's kind of crazy to say this statistically. Drake May is only one touchdown behind Patrick Mahomes at this point, and Drake May has only played 2 games as a member of the New England Patriots, where you have Pat, and he's been in every single game so far. So I think that Pat will improve as the season goes along, but at this point, it's kind of odd to say that he's having a relatively subpar start. But it doesn't matter; they're still getting wins. That's all that really matters at the end of the day. As long as you're getting a win, you get it in that column, you're good to go. When it comes to the 49ers are just one of those teams that have been a disappointment this year. There's no other way to put it. Offensively, there are times where they look pretty solid, and then there are games like this where they look like they're completely out of sorts. Brock Purdy did not look good against the Chiefs this past weekend, and there have been multiple games this year where I think Brock Purdy has played subpar football. But I really think that the 49ers are probably going to get things together once Christian McCaffrey is back in the fold. Obviously, he's dealing with the Achilles tendonitis issue in not just one of his Achilles, but both of his Achilles. And I think once he's able to get back on the field and stay healthy and provide a spark to that 49ers offense, until then, I think it's going to be up and down for the 49ers. And if that 49ers offense continues to sputter, it's putting that defense in a bad position because they're spending more time out there on the field and they're getting gassed. If it gets to the point where the 49ers are losing the time of possession, 35 minutes to 25 minutes or like 38 minutes to 22 minutes, that definitely has an effect. It's just because, when you get into those third down areas where you need a stop, if you've been out there on the field way too long, there's a good chance that more than likely that opposing offense is going to be able to convert on those third down opportunities and be able to extend drives. And that's what we really saw against the Chiefs this past weekend. So from an offensive perspective, things are probably going to improve once Christian McCaffrey gets back into the fold. It's going to hurt losing Ayuk for the rest of the year. He had either like some sort of ACL, MCL issue. It hasn't been.
Yep.
It was an ACL. Because I just saw the report where it said that he was out for the rest of the year, but they didn't specify what the injury actually was. But I was assuming it was an ACL injury. But losing him is going to hurt, even despite the fact that he didn't really have the best season so far because of the holdout. But they're going to have to rely on Deebo Samuel, Jawan Jennings, and George Kittle. I mean, granted, they're getting good contributions from Jordan Mason with Christian McCaffrey being out. But once McCaffrey gets back into the fold, I think this offense will start to get some consistency. I think the defense will turn around a little bit because they won't be on the field as much. And I think there's a very good chance that the 49ers will return to their ways once McCaffrey gets back in. But that's probably still another week or two away until we see him back. But overall, great win for the Chiefs. And the 49ers have to regroup. They're under 500 at this point. So at this point, this is not where I really envisioned seeing the 49ers at 7 weeks into the season. But I don't think it's really like the end-all be-all for them. I think they could be able to, get back into the win column consistently and potentially pull off some pretty big wins over the next couple of weeks. But I think once McCaffrey gets back in, that's what's really going to set in motion their winning ways, as far as I see it.
It's not a pretty sight when you go from a Super Bowl contending team with an elite defense and an up-and-coming offense with obviously an undrafted quarterback and the explosive offensive weapons like a Trent Williams, a McCaffrey, a Deebo, and so on and so on and so forth, to then go to basically a bear-ridden offense. Brandon Ayuk held out, had a very slow start. Deebo Samuel is in and out of this lineup with injuries. Trent Williams had that early holdout, but obviously he's played every single game. And then, of course, Christian McCaffrey being hurt the entire season. Now, as a fantasy owner of Jordan Mason, I know for a fact that he's not terrible, but he is no Christian McCaffrey. Point blank, period. I'm not going to sit here and say that, Mason's a bum, but it's very different when you have to scheme for a backup as opposed to the defending offensive player of the year like Christian McCaffrey. Now, I'm not going to sit here and make excuses for the 49ers because, again, this is not the first game to which they have played bad. However, I will say it just seems that Brock Purdy only does well when he has his weapons. But I do hate that argument in the media because if any player in any sport is playing shorthanded to the team that he has been successful with, I feel like that gives them not a pass, but you can't ride them as hard as you would as if he was failing with all the weapons in the world around him. You know what I mean? Like if he was just straight up just throwing interceptions if McCaffrey was there and Trent Williams was there healthy. You know what I'm saying? Like then we'd have a different conversation. But he's playing with backups. He's forcing passes. The offensive line is not holding as what it once was. And I'm not just talking about from the left side on the Trent Williams side, but from the guard position on the internal aspect. You can see that when they don't start off hot and they play from behind, San Francisco cannot do what they normally do, which is attack the offensive and defensive trenches. They cannot push the line of scrimmage. They cannot create play action. They cannot create those one-on-one matchups with the receivers on the outside if they are playing from behind. So there are reasons as to why San Francisco is struggling, but I agree with Kyle. Hopefully, as they start to get healthy, they may be able to turn it around, but there is no definitive guarantee that that is going to happen. But as of right now, San Francisco does not look good. Now, normally this is why I switched to say that the other team that won is playing well, but I can only say that about half of the team. And what I mean by that is the Kansas City defense is carrying this team without a doubt. Kyle already said if this was any other team with these metrics from a quarterback standpoint, they would probably be 500, if not worse. And I laugh because when Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy and a bunch of other NFL great players, or should I say quarterbacks, struggle like this statistically, they're getting destroyed in the media. Like, oh, this guy's a bum. Oh, this guy needs to get benched. Or I told you that this guy was never very good. But Patrick Mahomes, being Patrick Mahomes, a 3-time Super Bowl champion, 2-time MVP, he is safe from scrutiny. Oh, well, the offensive line didn't protect him. Oh, well, he's had all these injuries. And last I checked, Patrick Mahomes still has the greatest tight end of all time. And I say the greatest because damn near statistically in every category, he has surpassed almost everyone outside of maybe Shannon Sharp and Tony Gonzalez because he's got the Super Bowls now outside of what? Kyle, you being a Patriots fan, Gronk has 3 or 4?
Gronk has 4 because he got one with Tampa.
Right. So aside from that aspect, he's still, to me, probably the greatest tight end, if not top 2. And it's not a question. But you have him, and he is not nearly of a fraction of what he once was. Not even to last year. We're talking statistical standpoint, just last week, or should I say this past week. You're going to tell me that Travis Kelce had 4 catches for 17 yards? When the hell did Travis Kelce become a dump-off option? When did he become a 4th or 5th emergency? Oh, snap, I don't have time to throw. Let me dump it off to my tight end. Noah Gray, their backup tight end, has been outperforming Travis Kelce this season. Let that sink in. Their second tight end that is known for blocking and maybe some occasional third down conversions when Travis is doubled has outperformed All-Pro, Pro Bowl, Hall of Fame, Super Bowl champion Travis Kelce. That has to do with execution. That has to do with players. That has to do with play calling. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Andy Reid isn't dialing it up. But when you look at what this offense has been able to do or lack thereof, they're not targeting their best weapon. This is not the first time that the Kansas City Chiefs have had no wide receiver core and a bunch of unhealthy players and some no names or some players that are not performing to a specific standard. Because last I checked, he's the best player in football when I talk about Patrick Mahomes. He's the best quarterback in football. He's chasing the GOAT that is Tom Brady. He is the greatest quarterback prospect, the greatest quarterback talent that we've ever seen, according to all of these narratives and all of these casters and all of these sports narrators. But Patrick Mahomes is having probably the worst statistical year of his career. But we're not talking about that. The Chiefs are undefeated. And like Kyle said, as long as the win column moves, that's all that matters because this is a team sport. But if we are going to give Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy and Daniel Jones all of this hatred, there needs to be some slander provided to the 3-time Super Bowl champion because he's not performing. Sure, all of these other quarterbacks that are getting paid $50 to $60 million are playing bad as well. And Patrick Mahomes takes all the pay cuts. But Patrick Mahomes is also the first player to get all the praise in the world when he does absolutely nothing. All right, he trucked the 49ers player to score a touchdown or a first down or whatever that play was. Fantastic. He stood over somebody. Sure, Patrick Mahomes is finding ways to extend plays with his legs like he always does and converts on third down or finds a way to extend the play and gets a crazy arm flick going down the field for 40, 50 yards to Xavier Worthy. We've already seen that with Tyreek Hill. None of these things are, wow, he's really performing and finding ways to get it done like he has in the past. I am by no means a Patrick Mahomes hater at all, but I am just tired of quarterbacks who are also in similar predicaments, but because of their market and because of where or who they play with, they're not receiving the same grace. The Chiefs are undefeated, point blank, period. Their defense is playing astronomically incredible, and they're the last undefeated team in the league. All I'm saying is, if your greatest quarterback of all time in Patrick Mahomes is not performing to the standard in which everybody else is held to, I think he needs to be given a little bit of crap, or at least a little bit of critique, because this whole worship that Nick Wright has for him on this Mahomes Mountain segment that he holds every week, and he's at the top of the mountain every single week without question, is a little bit frustrating because there are a lot of quarterbacks that are outplaying him right now. And I think for a fact that the Kansas City Chiefs will see their day. They may not lose a lot of games, but I don't know if this team is going to be good enough to win a Super Bowl again if they continue to struggle this bad offensively.
You know, it's funny. I was just looking up I was looking up Brady's numbers from like some of his statistically down years. And mind you, like I'm looking at kind of like the same reference in time at his point, at the same point in Pat's career. Like Pat's what, like 6, 7 seasons in at this point.
Something like that, yeah.
So I'm looking at like Brady like in 05 and 06. And like statistically speaking, you know, you're looking at around like 26 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, 24 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. And then in 2007, he pops off for 50 touchdowns and 8 interceptions.
With Randy.
Yeah. So, you know, the fact that Pat is underwater at this point, you know, just comparing touchdowns to interceptions, it's a little cause of concern, but it's Patrick Mahomes. I think he's going to be able to bounce back from that. But I think at this point, as long as they're winning games and they're getting just the solid run game that they've been getting at this point with the great defensive play on the other side of the field, they can keep winning. Like they're still going to be able to pull off games. I really thought that this would have been the week that the Chiefs finally got knocked off, but I mean, dude, they gave San Francisco fits this entire game. So, you know, give credit where credit is due. But I think really at the end of the day, when it comes to this specific Chiefs team, I think it's really the level of coaching that's really kind of carrying this team. The players are going out there and playing at a high level. But I think in this year in particular, I think the level of coaching is a little bit more elevated than it has been in years past. Because, you know, you look at some of the past years with this Chiefs team, it's kind of nice when you basically kind of get to sit back and, you know, you put your guys in the right position and then they're performing at such a high level where Pat is throwing 50 touchdowns in his first year where he's the starting quarterback for the Chiefs. But, you know, you look at this situation where offensively they are in relative measure kind of struggling compared to years past, but they're still getting wins. To me, that's really where the coaching has shined the most. It's not to say that like the defense isn't playing well, that individual players aren't playing up to snuff. I'm not saying that. It's just I kind of round back to this quote that James Harrison had when he was a member of the Patriots. That was the year that the Patriots lost to the Eagles in Super Bowl 52. And he was asked about his time in New England. And he was basically saying that New England has good players when they were going on their run with Brady. But he was saying that just the level of coaching was far superior than anything that he had been around before when he was a member of the Steelers. And I think when it comes to this Chiefs team, that's kind of the same sentiment that I hold the Chiefs to in this point. I just think that Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, they're just at an elevated level as far as their coaching execution at this point, and it's showing week in and week out with the level of play that they've been getting from the offense. Like we said, Kev, this would be a subpar team at this point, just with the numbers that they're putting up offensively. But it's really a credit to Andy Reid and Steve for really getting this done.
For sure. And like I said, I want to make it clear. It's not Patrick Mahomes hate. It's just I see a lot on these debate shows and these talk shows to where quarterbacks are getting hatred and they're getting slander of, oh, should this person be benched, or should this person have ever been paid, or was this season a fluke, or, you know, can they replicate this? Oh, well, the purpose of being a quarterback is to find ways to win even if you don't have your weapons, because that's what you're supposed to do. It's a next man up mentality. But Patrick Mahomes has been lackluster, to say the very least, and that is being generous.
Yep.
And he is receiving none of that media hatred because his team is winning. And it's not because of him. It's not because of a play he's making or scoring or doing. He is quite literally throwing games away with some of the turnovers. So, like I said, let me be clear. Patrick Mahomes is still the best quarterback in the NFL because we all know he can turn this around in a split second. But until he does that, I just think that he needs a little bit more critique than he's been getting lately.
And I will say, I think losing Rashee Rice hasn't helped. Obviously, that's a huge component of the offense from the wide receiving core. But no, he could definitely play better. There's no doubt about that. And I think he knows that. He probably knows that more than anybody else. It's just that he just has to put those games together. He just has to be able to execute at a high level. And he's definitely capable of that. I don't think anybody doubts that. It's just that, he's got to limit the turnovers. And, he's just got to be pinpoint in his passes. And I think he will be. It's just, he's just got to do that on a more consistent basis. But no, at this point, I think he definitely deserves some sort of criticism for his play at this point, just because this isn't what we're typically accustomed of seeing from Pat at this point. But we'll put that game to the side. We'll move on to our next game. We're gonna focus on the Jets and the Steelers game this past weekend. This was a beatdown. Sunday night game. The Jets are coming fresh off of a trade, getting Davante Adams from the Las Vegas Raiders, and you got Aaron Rodgers and Adams coming back together to form that duo that they had that was absolutely explosive in Green Bay for all of those years. And it ends up going absolutely nowhere in this game. The score was 37-15 in favor of the Pittsburgh Steelers. This was Russell Wilson's first start as a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers as the quarterback. And I thought he played relatively well in this game. And Aaron Rodgers did not have the best game, had 2 interceptions in this game. One of them was not his fault. Garrett Wilson had a perfect pass literally right on his chest, and the ball popped up, and then the Steelers got an interception off of that. But Kev, we got to dive into the Jets here at this point. 2-5 record. You get Davante Adams, doesn't really do much. Had a couple catches here and there, but it looked like the chemistry between him and Rodgers is a little bit rusty in this first game against the Steelers. And Kev, they literally got the brakes beat off of them in this game, losing by 3+ touchdowns. This was not their best performance by any stretch of the imagination. So, Kev, to kick this one to you, the Jets are sitting at 2-5, obviously getting their ass kicked by the Steelers doesn't help. Do you think that the Jets season is over based off of where they're at right now?
I think that is I think that's the narrative that's going around, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it's going to be an easy feat to turn it around by any means. And to answer your question bluntly, I do believe their season is over. Do I think they're going to go under 500? No, but I think it might be a little too late to go and push for a division title, let alone trying to squeeze into a wild card position at this point. What I will say is, Jet fans, aren't you just like Met fans? A little delusional. Get a player here, you have a great performance, a good game.
Oh, you better be petty. You better be petty.
And you start running your mouth. And we got Aaron Rodgers. Oh, we traded for Hassan Reddick. Oh man, we got this crazy defense. I last I checked, Davante Adams was not the problem. Last I checked, Robert Saleh wasn't the problem. You decided to go and pay a quarterback $50 million a year. You decided to go and get somebody that is not washed, but not what he once was. You paid somebody based off of their previous experience. You paid somebody based off of your hopes and dreams. Oh, well, we won 7 or 8 games with Zach Wilson. Imagine what we're going to do with Aaron Rodgers. And if you would have got Aaron Rodgers 5, 6, maybe even 4 years ago, I would have said, oh my God, the Jets are going to the Super Bowl. But all I heard, all I saw, well, if Aaron Rodgers wasn't hurt last year, this, that, and the third, we would be so competitive. Oh, man, Zach Wilson sucks. Oh, man, this person's terrible. Man, how much time do we have here? Because I got a long list of how many excuses Jet fans like to give. You go and you draft a talented quarterback like Sam Darnold, but you keep the head coach in Adam Gase. You go and you fire Rex Ryan when it's not his fault that the offense wasn't producing. The list goes on and on in terms of historical failures at the head coach position. You go and you make a decision to go and acquire a quarterback well past his prime in the upper years of his career, tears his Achilles, which nobody wishes injury upon anybody. But to think that a 40-year-old quarterback was going to save your season, save your franchise with lack of mobility, struggling offensive line, and one of the worst offensive coordinators in NFL history. And I say that because he was fantastic in Green Bay. I don't think I've ever seen a head coach get fired that quickly within like 11 or 12 games in Denver like Nathaniel Hackett. But he has a job because it's Aaron Rodgers' friend. I've also never seen a quarterback refuse to come to minicamp by his head coach because he wants to travel or go on a retreat or that darkness or whatever the hell Aaron Rodgers did. And the majority of NFL quarterbacks that would have done that would have been benched, would have been fined, would have been suspended. He comes back like he ain't skip a beat. Like nothing ever happened. I'm tired of Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh gets fired. I want Alan Lazard. I want Randall Cobb. They go and acquire the two players. I want Devontae Adams. Aaron, we're trying. We're doing our best here. We can't just make things happen. They go and make it happen anyway. They 2-5. Last I checked, your problem was not receiving. Last I checked, your problem was not defense. Last I checked, it wasn't Robert Saleh's fault that Aaron Rodgers couldn't get things going or could not have the chemistry going with receivers because he didn't come to camp. That's on the Jets front office. That's Woody Johnson. That's the ownership. I don't feel bad for the Jets. I don't feel bad for Aaron Rodgers. We have been saying that he is a selfish, very much one-way type of player since his Green Bay days. There's a reason why he has won Super Bowl. He is not a leader of men. He is for himself. I genuinely don't want to hear, oh, well, the Jets drew bad luck, man. If this person was this or that person was that. You got Garrett Wilson. You got Alan Lazard. You got freaking Devontae Adams. You got one of the best running backs in Breece Hall. And then you got the guy Brandon Allen or whatever the hell his first name is. That guy that's Braylon Allen, and he's like 6'4", 250. It's like the second coming of Derrick Henry, and you don't even utilize him properly. And I don't know why that just did that. It's probably because I put the thumbs up. But it's the point. You have the weapons, you have Sauce Gardner, you have the defense, and you're not executing because you're overlooking the one problem that it is, and it's the quarterback position. The front office makes terrible decisions and loves to blame everybody but themselves, just like every NFL franchise. But I am not going to sit here and pretend like the Jets didn't do this to themselves. You blame Zach Wilson. You ran him out of town. Yes, he played terribly. He was historically bad. But you're going to blame Sam Darnold for a bad coach? You're going to blame Zach Wilson for having a bad OC and a defensive-minded head coach? I don't see anybody blaming Aaron Rodgers, and he's got all the weapons in the world. I don't see anybody blaming Aaron Rodgers for his piss-poor performances and him throwing players under the bus at the podium. But it's Aaron Rodgers. It's the New York Jets. This is the standard, and that's mediocrity. So when it comes to, is the Jets season over? Yeah, definitely. A rebuild is necessary, but you just traded all your assets away and all your cap space to go and make players happy that don't deserve it. You just went and eliminated $12 million of Hassan Reddick's fines for him throwing a tantrum and not getting what he wanted. You're 2-5. It's too late, buddy. Hassan Reddick coming for a pass rush is not going to save two losses that you should have never had in close games like the Buffalo Bills game a week ago. So no, the Jets are not going to do anything. Aaron Rodgers probably should retire, and the front office is still a mess. I'm 30 years old. The Jets have not made the playoffs, or at least a relevant run in the playoffs, since they beat the Colts in the AFC Championship. And we all know that was an embarrassing game on the Colts half. But the Jets team was competitive. The defense, the head coach, Mark Sanchez being a rookie. It was all lined up to be something special. And it didn't happen. That is the story of the New York Jets. And I'm sorry I went on a rant, but when it comes to situations like that, I couldn't even go into the Steelers because Russell Wilson played well. I can't go into the Steelers because the defense played well for the Steelers. And there is a controversy in Pittsburgh. Justin Fields has a different kind of leadership mentality. But when it comes to what Russell Wilson was able to do with his arm, because he is a quarterback, because he was present in the pocket, because he was able to extend plays with his legs, but still find a way to move the ball downfield with his arm, there's not much going on in Pittsburgh. If Russell Wilson can have another game or two like this, there is no more controversy. This is who you should have started, but he was injured. But from the Jets' perspective, there's a laundry list worth of crap that we can talk about, but I digress. I will let it go. I'm not a Jets hater. I just can't stand the fans and going down Twitter and social media and friends of mine that are Jets fans that are always making excuses. But heaven forbid I make an excuse on a podcast video. Oh, well, Kev, it's your fault for drafting Anthony Richardson. Oh, it's your fault for keeping Frank Reich. What's your excuse? I know my team sucks. What's yours?
Kev, just refresh my memory here. What's the record of the Colts right now? Just put it out there.
Above 500. I think 4-3. I think.
And Anthony Richardson is dog shit, right?
Oh, he's atrocious. Oh, by the way, and the guy that have replaced him is 39 years old.
But still above 500.
Yes.
Still,
Oh. And here's the best part. We don't have Devontae Adams, even though you just got him. We don't have Alan Lazard. We don't have Breece Hall. We have Jonathan Taylor, but Jonathan Taylor's missed the last 3-4 weeks. We don't have the defense that you guys have because statistically, not you guys, but Jets fans, we have probably the worst rush defense in the league, probably one of the worst pass defenses in the league, and definitely not a good pass rush. But again, what do I know? Because the Jets are the Jets, 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 right? I don't know.
Kev, there's not really much that I could add to this. There's only one thing that I could kind of add to this segment, I guess. And that is, it's not easy going from another team trying to be competitive for a Super Bowl, huh? Especially when you're getting up into your late 30s, early 40s. There were plenty of people that when Aaron Rodgers went to New York were saying, Jets might make a Super Bowl run here. You got that talent in Aaron Rodgers where he could be able to extend plays with his feet, can light it up with his arm. And so far, we've got an Achilles tear. And then you got a 2-5 season so far where he's playing subpar football at best. And I can't help but just go back to this one point in my head. Brady goes from New England to Tampa in the first year, gets the Super Bowl. First year. And as far as I'm concerned, Kev, you could tell me, because I watched that team. Did the Bucs players ever really criticize Brady about his leadership skills? Did they ever go after him publicly about being selfish, not being a team first guy? Did you happen to hear any of that when he was in Tampa?
Not once. And everyone knows I am not a Brady fan, but I have no criticism of how he led a team.
Can we say that about Aaron Rodgers in New York?
Absolutely not. He's fucking terrible. Excuse my French.
It ain't easy. And Brady did that at 43? You got Aaron Rodgers, and this is just a side point. Aaron Rodgers got to do something about that beard because he looks like he's 50 out there. And
New York adds years to people's lives, man. Not everybody can handle it.
He's looking like he's like right on retirement's doorstep at this point, just because he's just not playing well. And I mean, when it comes to the Jets, I can't believe I'm saying this. They have one more win compared to New England. One. And I mean, the only thing that New England really has kind of going right now is the fact that their rookie quarterback actually looks really decent so far.
Drake May, shout out to Drake May. I give your boy credit. He looks good.
He looks confident. Granted, the offensive line is trash. Obviously, they're not opening up run lanes for the run game either. But Kev, from a confidence standpoint, Drake looks fine. But you look at Aaron Rodgers in the situation they have going, it's a mess. It's a mess. And 2-5, they're going to have to find some sort of way to be able to recalibrate here and get things in motion. But I think they're a long way away from that. And I mean, you get Devontae and you still can't put, you only put up 15 points. 15.
And people are going to say he only had 6 days of practice. No, that's fine. Oh, no. I will give you, again, I am a fair individual.
He had
fine,
some time.
6 days. He had a couple days.
He had rest. He was well rested going into that game.
He was fine. First day coming off an injury. He hasn't played with Aaron in a few years. Again, I'm not a Jets hater. I just have problems with the fan base that likes to give a lot of shit but hates to get it in return. So that's why I'm giving it to them, because I feel like there needs to be some honesty in this pool of fandom. You can't just go, well, this person sucks, or this team sucks, or you're lucky if this person wasn't healthy. You're lucky if we would have got this person back in time. You can play the what if game every day of your life. Like what if Joe Namath would have lost? Would he still be Broadway Joe, even though he's one of the worst historical quarterbacks in the NFL, in the NFL Hall of Fame? He's got more interceptions than touchdowns in his career. His completion percentage is terrible. Like, you really want to sit here and play the what if game?
I mean, he does have that iconic video where he points
Of
the number one to the sky in the Super Bowl.
I get it. I get it. Gotta let 1967 go, brother. Gotta let it go. Time to be relevant in the present. I am the first person to say, and Kyle can attest this to Dan Edom and any friend of mine that has ever known me as a sports fan, when my team sucks, I'm going to let people know. I don't want to hear, oh, this person hurt, this person. No, we suck. You a professional athlete. There are backup players here that are desperate to play in these leagues, and you going to tell me you can't perform. When the Yankees were ass, I was letting them know. When the Mavericks was ass, I was letting them know. I almost quit the fandom of the Colts, how bad they were a couple years back.
I think
I'm
you
not
did.
saying that,
I think you did.
I'm not saying that they're good right now, but we are moving in a direction to where I can see a future. I don't want to hear it. You have had excuse after excuse, coach after coach, quarterback after quarterback, coordinator after coordinator. I don't want to hear it. You have a quarterback at the age of 40 who is holding your franchise hostage. I want this person. I want this coach. I want this person. God, I want this person. Everything that he wanted, he got. And he can't win. I don't want to hear it. And that's all I'm going to say on the New York Jets because, again, I'm not a hater. I just don't like the fan base.
This is your city, though. This is your city.
No, that's Jersey, bro. I don't claim them. What's wrong with you?
I mean, it's the New York Jets.
Yeah, that's fine. Listen, I got a lot of Jet fans that are probably going to give me a lot of shit for this, but that's okay because I had to deal with a lot of text messages when the Colts were bad and the Mavs were bad and the Yankees were bad. I had to get a lot of stuff because these were all fans of different teams, whether that's the Knicks, the Nets, the Mets, the Giants, whatever. It don't make no difference. Y'all gonna dish it. You know your boy gonna give it back. You want to call me after the podcast, you let me know. You want to shoot me a text, an Instagram message, and a DM. It's open for a discussion and a debate. You want to come on the podcast and you want to have a debate, we can have a debate because I welcome it. But don't come up in here and give me no shit. And then I got to get a message afterwards and be like, yo, Kev, why you coming at me like that? It's not coming at you. It's coming at all of y'all because everybody want to keep that same energy. I'm not playing, man. I can't stand it sometimes.
And not only that, I think when it comes to New York in general, I don't really think they care about the Jets anyway, just because obviously, like, dude, your hat says it. I think they're more focused about the Yankees right now because at least they're giving New York a reason to actually be excited about something because it sure as shit is not coming from the Jets. And it sure as shit is not coming from the Giants. We'll see what happens with the Knicks. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how that's going to work out this year.
And it may have been 15 years since we've been to a World Series, but we have been to the playoffs quite a bit. We've been to a couple ALCS championship series. You know what I'm saying? We've been there. We may not have won, but we have been competitive. The Jets can't say the same.
Yeah, y'all are lucky y'all didn't go up against the Astros because that might have been different. But I'm not going to talk about that. You guys in the World Series.
Why?
Man, we talked about this last week. That's the one. That's a demon in New York, dude.
Everybody, it's them and the Rays lately that we cannot beat in the postseason. Yes,
but fortunately, you didn't have to go through them. But you guys did your thing against Cleveland, so I'll give you that.
Correct.
But we'll get to the Yankees in a little bit. But there was no shortage of heart attacks that New York was getting with how the Yankees played, even though they won that series convincingly. There was plenty of. I wouldn't be surprised that like literally the entire blood pressure of New York like got elevated multiple times in that series, despite the fact that they won 4-1 in that series. But we'll get to that at the end of the episode. But with that said, we'll transition to our last topic of discussion, and that's going to be Deshaun Watson. I think everybody pretty much knows that Deshaun is out for the rest of the year with the torn Achilles. Everybody has seen the replay. Yep. I'm not going to go through the whole setup here. This is a pretty straightforward topic on this one. Kev, as we look at it right now, Deshaun Watson has not been a good quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns are going absolutely nowhere at this point, and they're probably on the doorstep of another rebuild. It's another rebuild. It's been a long list of rebuilds. As far as you and I have been alive, they've basically been in a constant rebuild. So just how do you see the Browns moving forward with the whole Deshaun Watson situation after he tore his Achilles? And do you think that Deshaun Watson's career is potentially in jeopardy here after that Achilles tear this past Sunday?
100%. I think his career is, in jeopardy is to say the least, just because we all know how he's been performing. We all know how some athletes recover from Achilles injuries or just major structural injuries in general, whether that's an ACL or an Achilles. But he's not, or has not, no, excuse me, he has not built a resume while in Cleveland for another team to go out and take a risk and say, you know what? He showed me enough in these 5 or 6 games this season to say that he's still got some left in the tank. He has not shown me enough to say that I'm willing to take on that cap hit of $170 some odd million over the next couple of seasons. There's no piece of me that says he is the Watson from Clemson. He is the Deshaun Watson from the Houston days. He's not a leader of men. He is not someone that's going to go out there and motivate your team. And it showed a few weeks back, I think it was 2 weeks ago actually, where he walked off on a 4th down while Kevin Stefanski was actively calling a play, and he basically stuck his hand up while his teammates were like, where the hell are you going? Essentially quitting on an offensive drive. The offensive line, the team, the injuries, all of it. There's a bunch of things that are probably not going right with the Cleveland Browns. But when you have a 2-time coach of the year in Kevin Stefanski and what he was able to do with a 38-year-old quarterback in Joe Flacco, I am less inclined to blame him when he was able to do more with less. You went and made a decision, and by you I mean the front office. I'm pretty hostile today. I haven't felt like this in a little bit, so I do apologize. But the Cleveland Browns organization is an absolute joke, and here's why. When you make a decision to trade away a quarterback that found a way to make you relevant, and by relevant I mean competitive, in Baker Mayfield, a guy who was willing to give it all, play through injury, love a city, support the team, be there through injury, listen through all the adversities of the trade rumors and the potential of not extending him and everything that he had gone through, getting you your first playoff win in decades, to get the treatment that he did, the cold shoulder once somebody became available, is unlike any other. I don't understand. Yes, I get it from a talent perspective, Baker Mayfield or Deshaun Watson, of what Deshaun was prior to the allegations and all the legal issues, 100%. I'm not saying I wouldn't have made the trade. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm naive like that. But to dismiss him as quickly as they did, without any negotiations, we'd like to keep you on as a backup just in case, anything, and you threw him away. And then you go and you give this individual a fully guaranteed contract for the first time ever been done in the NFL. And for him to perform as bad as he has, with the legal issues still looming, and a multitude of different lawsuits coming out this year still, in 2024, during this NFL season at the start in September, there has been at least a minimum of 2 to 4 more women that have come out and accused him of misconduct. While Baker Mayfield is sitting here and had a playoff appearance last year, and the Buccaneers, as of right now, they're losing this game 41-31 against the Ravens at home. But a competitive, gritty player nonetheless, to where all his Tampa teammates love him and have nothing but positive vibes to say about him, to what you have to deal with now with Deshaun Watson. You've handcuffed yourself and threw yourself in the bottom of a river because there's nothing you can do with this contract. No one's going to take a cap hit. No one's going to want to trade for him. You can't bench him. And if you do, you're quite literally paying $40 to $50 or $60 million for a guy that's sitting on the bench. Nobody wants to play with him. And I can guarantee you that locker room isn't divided. They're just there at this point collecting checks. You just traded Amari Cooper. You're wasting Myles Garrett's career years. You're wasting Denzel Ward. Kevin Stefanski is, again, a brilliant head coach, and he is not being able to express or utilize the offense that we know he can control. And that is on the front office. So the Cleveland Browns, to you, I say congratulations. You done fucked up. There's no other way to put it. Because you had something special with a guy that was willing to do everything for you to a guy who's willing to quit on you on a 4th down play. There's really not much else I can say. If Deshaun Watson's career were to end today, not because of injury, aside from that, but because of his poor performance, that's on the Cleveland Browns front office, and there's not much else I can add to it, to be honest.
Kev, I'm going to be honest with you on this one. I'm a little conflicted when it comes to the whole Deshaun Watson thing. And I think it's because I'm kind of projecting Deshaun Watson like 20 years from now. Like, if he looks back on this chapter of his life with the whole sexual misconduct thing, the injury issues that he's dealt with, getting dealt to Cleveland, I think he's going to look back at this portion of his life as an absolute nightmare. And it's really of his own making. And that's how I kind of see like this whole thing. Like, he did it to himself with the whole sexual misconduct thing. And I mean, it's not just one accusation. I mean, we're talking about dozens of accusations. So it's just, that is going to just play itself out over time. And it has been playing itself off the field. But when it comes to on the field, Kev, when he was a member of the Houston Texans, was he not one of the most electrifying players in the NFL?
I hated playing against that man on Sundays, bro. That guy was he won me fantasy football championships. That guy was nice.
Kev, I pulled up his stats just because I was curious. His last year in Houston was in 2020. He had 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 36 total touchdowns. He had 3 on the ground. He threw for 4,800 yards and had a completion percentage of 70%.
Electric, bro. Disgusting.
And now you look at him, dude, he hasn't completed 65% of his passes as a member of the Cleveland Browns yet. Like, he got sent to a black hole. And it's kind of ironic that this happened when the whole sexual allegations started coming out. Because now, where does he go from here? At this point, like, there's a very real chance that he may end up retiring, just because I don't know if there's really any other way that he can kind of like navigate his career in a positive trajectory. But depending on how this whole sexual misconduct case goes with all of the pending accusations against him, I mean, at a certain point, there's going to be a settlement from that case. And I think at this point, Kev, he's going to have to come back, because you don't think that they're going to bleed him dry of all of his NFL money, because they know that his contract is fully guaranteed. That settlement from that case is going to be massive. And I don't think he has any other choice but to come back, because at least in the NFL, that's going to make him money. But the injuries, playing in Cleveland, he has no offensive line. It seems like there's just no trust whatsoever. And I think Deshaun may actually be a major component in that, just because I don't think he's really, like you said, he's not leading that team with the most confidence. He's not putting his guys in a position where he's galvanizing the team around him. It's just not happening. So, do I think that his career is over? I mean, as of right now, it's teetering. It's definitely teetering. I don't think he'll
Chris
retire.
Godwin, right?
No, I don't have Chris Godwin.
I think he's out for the season. I'm watching the Cardinals game, and that chat on Stream East is saying that he broke his leg.
You want me to look it up real quick?
I'm here. I'm looking it up. I can't see anything definitive, and I'm like,
because I pretty much, like, honestly, like, I don't have much else to say about Deshaun. I think
I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm just saying.
No,
I'm like, damn, a broken leg. Holy crap.
Well, I mean, was it as bad as the Aiden Hutchinson one? I mean, I could look.
I am trying to see if I can get a replay right now, but it's taking a while to load. So, guys, I do apologize for the change in subject. It's just when you hear or see or read a player broke his leg, I'm like, wait a minute, what the hell just happened? They're carting him off the field, and he's in an air cast. Yeah.
Basically, like, his ankle, like, basically, like, he got tackled, and when he was on the ground, it literally, like, his foot was pointed at like a 45-degree angle. Yeah, that's not good. I think he might bones. It's either he broke his leg or he broke his ankle. It's one of them. And that was on top of the fact that they lost Mike Evans to a hammy earlier in the game.
Jesus Christ, that is not an ideal
And he was
situation.
Godwin's having a great year too, which really hurts. But this is you lose Mike Evans and Chris Godwin on the same night. That's a rough loss.
Yeah, and odds are the Bucks are gonna fall to 4-3 in this game as well. So it's kind of just like a uh-oh.
Yeah, it's going from bad to worse, and that's a rough one. But
That's not good.
yeah, I like Chris too. Chris is a good guy.
Staple of consistency, man. Somebody that's just always going to get you the plays that you need. Someone that's reliable on third down. Just a great, gritty kind of player.
Yeah, but obviously, I imagine we'll hear from the team soon about his status. But if I had to guess, he's going to be out indefinitely, probably for the rest of the season with that type of injury. Just hate to see it. Just hate to see it. Chris is such a great player for that team, but yeah, it looks like his not only is his night done, I wouldn't be surprised if his season is done after that. But I think at this point we've pretty much wrapped up the NFL portion of the episode. We'll finish the episode with it's your team. Now, this is gonna be the first time in 15 years that you guys have made 15 years?
Sophomore in high school.
So that was 2009.
Mhm.
They played, if I remember correctly, they played the Philadelphia Phillies when they won number 27. And the Yankees and the Dodgers will meet up in this year's World Series, which is slated to be a really fun World Series. You got the Dodgers, who have been to multiple World Series over the last couple of years. The Yankees, like Kevin said earlier, have been competitive, but this is their first time in the World Series in almost, I won't say 2 decades, but it's been a decade and a half. So it's been a long time coming, but this is going to be a really good World Series as far as I'm concerned. But Kev, the floor is yours. Just give me your thoughts about the initial matchup between the New York Yankees and the Los Angeles Dodgers in this upcoming World Series.
Yeah, just keep it panned both ways, because quite frankly, there's not really much I'm going to dive into here, just because this is what people in sports want. Right? You want the 2 best teams in each respective conferences to go up against each other. You want the best of the best. I heard a TikTok, or there was a video somewhere where I was watching, and it was just like, people are always saying in sports, I want this best person versus this best person, or I want this best team versus this best team, because it's going to be the most fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Like, remember the Super Bowl a few years ago, or not a few years ago now, it's been a while, where it was the number 1 defense Seattle Seahawks versus the number 1 offense of the Denver Broncos, and it was slated to be the most competitive Super Bowl of all time, because it was the 2 best teams going up against each other. And it ended up being one-sided, and Seattle absolutely dominated, which is why I will die on the hill of defense wins championships. That'll never change in my opinion. But anyway, I digress. What I'm getting at is, Kyle, in situations like this, I want to see the best go up against the best. I don't like the narrative of this was an easy path, or you didn't play anybody, or this person's best player wasn't available, because that's what I've been getting a lot on social media.
You got it from me.
Not
the
just
Astros,
you.
The Astros.
No. I'm not talking about just you. Plenty of players and plenty of people in the internet on the internet, are saying the Yankees didn't play anybody. Yankees were not competitive. The Yankees were this, that. Who were the Royals? Who were the Guardians? Blah blah blah. Right? But when you look at the numbers and you look at the statistics, the Royals had arguably one of the best starting rotations in all of baseball. The Royals had the odds are second favorite individual in Witt Jr. to go after the AL MVP. The Yankees were one of the worst teams to close out this past season. They did not play very well. We won towards the end of September, but we did not close out the season very well. We could have solidified home field advantage weeks before that, but we went on a skid, and we had some injuries. You talk about the Dodgers, and they're talking about the Yankees payroll. Meanwhile, they went and paid $700 million for Shohei Ohtani. They went and they traded for Tyler Glasnow. They went and they got Freddie Freeman. They got Mookie Betts. But we're the bad guys, right? You know, everyone's always talking about all this hatred. Oh, you played the Guardians. Who the hell are the Guardians? Well, no, they have the best bullpen in baseball. They were a game, if not half of a game, behind us in total record. But we're playing bums. The Dodgers just beat the Mets, who were the last team to make the fucking playoffs, albeit competitive, but they played the Mets. And we're talking about who had an easier schedule. I'm not getting hate, man. I understand that everybody hates the Yankees, but to discredit a playoff run because we didn't play the Astros this year because they weren't good enough to beat the Tigers, because we didn't play the Red Sox, who weren't good enough to make the playoffs, we have to suffer for the hatred and the stupidity. The games weren't blowouts. We didn't blow anybody out like the Dodgers did. None of their games were close. We're sitting here, we're talking about competitiveness, strength of schedule. Every game that we played that we won was within 2 runs, outside of this last game because we won by 3. Is that because the Yankees are bad or because the players that we're playing are good? I don't know. It depends on who you ask in the media. So when people talk about the Yankees not deserving to be there, you got to take bias out because all of those games were close. The offense of the Yankees was struggling the majority of this postseason. Our best player, our MVP, sucks in the playoffs. Our starting rotation outside of 2 pitchers made it outside of the 6th inning. Rodon made 6. Cole made 7. That's 2 people out of, we won 7 games thus far. We played 9. So out of 9 games, 2 starting pitchers were able to make it past the 6th inning, if not to get to the 6th, excuse me. Our bullpen was getting shelled in the last 2 games of that damn ALCS series. Luke Weaver was getting embarrassed in the last 2 games of that series, minus the game-clinching win in Game 5. We're getting players like Anthony Volpe, who is stepping up. Nobody knows who the hell he is if you're not a Yankee fan. Alex Verdugo. Anthony Rizzo, who's 33 or 34, 35 plus years old with a broken hand, broken fingers. Gleyber Torres, who half the Yankees fans, including myself, I will not bullshit, wanted gone when he was making consistent errors at second base this season. But offensively, since moving to the leadoff spot, was batting over 300, including the postseason. So we're going to hate a team that overcame adversity and who has a manager that can't find a way out of a paper bag in Aaron Boone, because Lord knows I hate him. And we're going to say they don't deserve to be there. This World Series is shaped up to be one of the best matchups that we have seen in years to come because of the numbers behind it and the strength in what both teams bring to the table. Not to mention the extrastantial circumstances, 2 of the biggest markets in the world, Los Angeles versus New York fucking City. The money that those 2 cities are going to make from just the revenue of ticket sales is crazy. Do you know to go to the Dodgers game 1 is an average of $1,400 to sit in the nosebleeds? The average of game 3 through 5 in the Bronx is over $1,100 to sit in stand-only sections. So when we talk about all the things that it can do for baseball, it's going to break records for attendance and views.
There's a thumbs up again. Thumbs up is back.
All I'm saying is, I'm not saying here we're definitively gonna win the World Series. I hope that we do. I pray to God that we do, because I really want to go to the parade. Because I just spoke to my boss today, and I said, hey, remember when I got hired and I told you if the Yankees win the World Series, I'm going to the parade? And she was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, just remember, the World Series ends November 2nd, depending on who wins, obviously. If we win, I'm going home. She's like, that's fine. Take a mental health day. I was like, oh, perfect. I'm going to do it. So it's going to be a fantastic series. The power and the offense, the 3-headed monster that is Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. And then you have, and Shohei Ohtani versus Stanton and Judge and Soto. The pitching, the markets, the cities, the lights, the action. The Dodgers and Yankees have played each other in years past in the World Series in the 70s and the 80s. This is something that is projected and hopefully will be one of the best World Series we've ever seen. I hope that we perform. I'm just saying the hatred is a little crazy because I understand there's a lot of people that don't like Yankee fans or just the Yankees in general. But last year when it was the Diamondbacks versus the Rangers, nobody wanted to watch it. Nobody cared for a small market team. People said it was boring. It wasn't entertaining. despite Aroldis Garcia going absolutely bonkers and Max Scherzer going wild, and the Diamondbacks being competitive for the first time in 20 years, nobody cared for it. But now that the two top market teams are in the World Series, everybody's bitching. Fans got to make up their mind, man. I'm not just talking about Yankees and Dodgers fans. I'm talking about everybody in general. You want the two best, or do you want two 80-win teams making it? Because you had it last year, and nobody watched it. And now you have the best this year, and everyone's saying they're going to boycott it because it's the Yankees and the Dodgers. So make up your mind, America. You're not making much sense.
Listen, man. You know who I'm rooting for in this series.
If you say the Dodgers, to be honest, I might hang up the call.
Well, I'm just going to leave it like this. The Yankees win the World Series. I'm never going to hear the end of it.
Me?
I'm never going to hear the end of it.
Oh, my God.
You guys are going to treat this World Series as like your golden child because it's coming up against a team like the Dodgers. It's like if this were like the Padres, if this were like the Diamondbacks, or if this was like maybe the Mets might be a little bit different because the Mets would actually be like an internal, like there might be like an internal civil war in the city that actually might be kind of like compelling. That'd be fun. But if the Yankees win the World Series, my Twitter is going to be inundated with people from the Bronx, people all throughout New York, literally flipping cars.
Okay, whoa.
Climbing up street lamps. They're gonna be doing the what were they doing the other night? They were in front of the stadium. They were singing that what's that song? Yeah, they're gonna be doing that. I'm never gonna hear the end of it. Never gonna hear the end of it.
You make it seem like you live in New York, where they're gonna walk up to you and be like, "Yo, you see the Yankees?" All you're gonna do is you're gonna get a text message from me, and that's it.
I don't even live there, and I could hear the city through my phone from all the things that I'm gonna see on Instagram, on Twitter, Facebook. My timeline, my feed is gonna be flooded with Yankee stuff. Like it is going to be.
There's a difference though. New York Yankee fans versus New York Knicks fans are vastly different. They were celebrating after a Game 2 first round win. We celebrated in the streets after getting to the World Series. So it's not all New Yorkers that are bad. It's just it's very different. I just wanted to point that out because you and I both made the comment of what the hell are they celebrating? They didn't even win the series yet.
I mean, Stan hasn't been celebrating. Well, I mean, outside of the locker room shit, but I mean that's.
Well, but it's every player.
Yeah, but he's not satisfied. Nope. I know he's not satisfied.
He basically had a Kobe moment. He goes, "It doesn't mean anything until we win it all."
But there were a couple streams that I was watching of like Yankee watch parties throughout this series.
Oh, at Billy's?
There's one guy in particular. I think his name is Joey.
Okay.
He always covers every single game. I want to say he's Dominican. Like he has he's like a giant flag. Usually wears like a Yankee helmet.
He had Miro on one of his watch parties the other day. Yeah. He's funny as hell.
Yeah, like I could tell you this though, he was sweating bullets in that series. Even though you guys won that 4-1 in some of those games, especially when what's his name Noel hit that what looked to be like a moonshot. And looked like it literally looked like he was going to put New York in a coma after that hit because it's like if you guys lost that game, you guys would have been scared. You guys would have been petrified going into Game 5.
That's a fact.
But no, I think just to get all the pettiness out of the way. No, I think it's going to be a great series. I think this is going to be one that really lives up to expectations. It really can go either way. I think if I had to guess right now, granted, I am not the most clued in person on baseball like I used to be. But if I had to guess just based off of how I've seen both teams perform up to this point, I would probably give the edge to the Dodgers simply just because I think their bats are better. I think their pitching is a little bit better. And the one thing that the Yankees have had a very difficult time, especially within the ALCS series, was their bullpen was just utter trash. They were getting absolutely destroyed.
In the last two games.
In the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning in Cleveland, outside of Game 5, But in games 3 and game 4, not their best moments.
Correct.
They got to clean some things up going into this series against the Dodgers, because you can maybe make those mistakes against the Guardians. I don't think you can make those same mistakes against the Dodgers. And dude, I know you've been watching it just like I have. Dude, Ohtani has been teeing off. He's been, compared to Judge, Ohtani's been lighting it up. The only the thing that's been saving you guys is, I don't think the bats are really the issue here with the Yankees. It's your pitching. I will say that
we are one of the worst teams in the playoffs at leaving runners in scoring position. Well, there has been multiple times we've had the bases loaded and get nothing out of it, or get one run.
But Cleveland did the same thing. But Cleveland was having the same issue.
I agree, but they don't have the power that we have. When Stanton comes up to play and he gets one home run out of 4 at bats, when Judge comes up and he's 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts, and all you're doing is relying on Giancarlo Stanton, or excuse me, you're just relying on Juan Soto.
Stanton.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's.
But those guys are performing.
Stanton goes 1 for 4, and that one hit being a home run, which is huge. I'm just saying you can't have a leadoff hit by Glaber, who's batting over 300. You can't have Soto walk for Judge to come up, hit into a double play, strike out, fly out. Then you have freaking Giancarlo Stanton trying to swing away, and he doesn't get hot until later on in the game, to where he grounds out, and he doesn't run out any pitches either if he makes contact. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot here. There's Austin Wells. There's Jazz Chisholm. The offense is absolutely horrendous outside of a select few players, which is why I will be honest and say I want the Yankees to win, but I don't think the Yankees will win. And it has nothing to do with faith. It has strictly to do with what I have seen from the players that are not named, the 3 that I have been naming. I don't know if we are going to be able to recover from Wells going 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts, Jazz Chisholm talking his way through an interview, giving Juan Soto all this credit and all this love. And since he's made the comments in Kansas City, I believe he's somewhere along the lines of 5-30, if not 4-30, since those comments were made. Austin Wells at one point was 4 for 38, if not 4 for 40, going into the ALCS, if not in the ALCS, to where we had to bench him and put in Trevino, who at his first at bat got an RBI single. So trust me, I get it.
Here's what I'll say. And the reason why I kept saying like the bats I don't think were the main issue in that series against Cleveland is because in that series, Cleveland had their moments, but kind of similar to what the Yankees had, they couldn't get their guys on base. But to me, when I look at the situation where I really kind of look at game 3 in particular, because game 3, you have Judge get that 2-run shot to tie the game. You have Stanton get the go-ahead run in the 8th inning, and then they get an insurance run in the 9th. Your bullpen needs to be able to shut that down. You can't give up a 2-run lead going into the bottom of the 9th. And the fact that I think the Guardians won that one in the 10th inning, correct? It was a walk-off home run from Fry in game 3, and they won 7-5. That was a game that you guys should have won. And then in game 4, those same bullpen issues came up. I thought the bats did enough to win that series. That's why I can't.
Especially with the back-to-backs from Judge and Stanton.
I'm comparing, I'm basically saying that I thought the bats weren't the issue compared to your bullpen. I should have been more clear saying that. I thought your bats did enough to be able to win. I thought your bullpen let you down. That's what I'm saying.
Sorry, Marvin Harrison Jr. just dropping passes left and right today. It's crazy. He's nothing like his father at this point early on. But anyway, no excuse, but Aaron Boone is to blame for the bullpen being in the position in which they were, because he refused to put in players like Marcus Stroman and a number of other bullpen relievers that we needed to call up that we did not, because he was insistent upon playing the same 3 people. Clay Holmes, Tim Hill, who actually played very well, and Luke Weaver. When you played baseball, when you see a pitcher a multitude of times in a series, you start to get acclimated. You start to familiarize yourself.
You know their tendencies.
Right. Oh, he likes to throw inside. Oh, his main pitch is a breaking ball. He can't throw a fastball. Oh, on a 2-0 count, I know this is coming. And so on and so forth. The continuous rotation in which he did was to get Clay Holmes in first and foremost right after our starter made it out. get out of a jam, and maybe he'd go into the next inning. And then Luke Weaver would have a 4 or 5 out save in the 8th inning. He would pull players based upon analytical data to say, oh, we have 2 lefties coming up, despite Cousins having a fire sequence or leader or any of these relievers who were on a hot streak. You pull them because the numbers say to pull them. This isn't the 80s. This isn't the 90s or the 2000s where if a guy's hot, you leave him in the game. Unless it's quite literally the greatest player of all time coming up to bat to where you say, all right, I got to change it up because I got to give him something that people haven't seen in the last couple of innings. That's different. But you're talking, you get an out, and then you're putting in another. I get it. It's a strategic, more analytical game than it was 20, 30 years ago. But Aaron Boone cannot manage himself out of a paper bag if it came down to, I'm going to quote basketball here, if the death beams are pointed at the earth, we're dead because he doesn't know what he's doing. And it has been proven a multitude of times. We don't pinch hit, and we have terrible substitutions. It is just let everybody rock and let their feelings fall and their confidence descend into the epitome of hell. Austin Wells should have been benched a number of times.
He got the one home run. That was it. That was the one. He got the one home run. That was it.
Jazz Chisholm should have been benched or pinch hit for a multitude of times. Alex Verdugo in certain games, because there have been games where he has been clutch, both in the field and at the plate, should have been benched for Dominguez, and so on and so forth. There are a lot of questionable decisions and lack thereof that could have happened in this postseason run. In this next series, it is quite literally for a championship, and I do not have faith when it comes to Aaron Boone versus David Robertson. I don't, because he is one of the best managers in baseball, and it has been proven year in and year out since he became the manager of the Dodgers. And they have a World Series under their belt, and they have been, like you said, to multiple. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm a delusional Yankee fan to say, the Stars have a line, it's been 15 years and 200 and some odd days, and Aaron Judge has been here since 2015. What? No. No, I don't do the horoscope shit. I'm not going to sit here and do the worship and pray. Bro, can we do it? Yes. Will we do it? I hope so. Do I think we'll do it? I don't know.
I got to ask. I have to. What if they win?
I'll lose my shit, bro. I'm going home. I'll lose my shit. Listen, I cried, and Isabel can tell you, when we won that game. Because it's not because, and I'm doing my best to not get emotional. It's not because I'm an arrogant fan. It's not because I'm delusional. People don't understand when you come from a place like New York. There's a lot of shit you got to deal with. There's a lot of stuff you got to deal with. There's a lot of things you see that you shouldn't have seen.
A lot of people.
A lot of times, sports get you through those days. Going to Yankee games with my dad as a little kid are some of the fondest memories of my life. Watching the Yankees as a little kid with my great-grandfather, some of the best days ever. I was 15 when we won last. I wasn't a man, but I wasn't a little boy. So I remember that series vividly. So I wear the, I was alive, but I was 4 in 1998. I was 5 in 1999. I was 6, and that was the World Series I really remember. That's why that's my favorite, because it was with the Mets. And I remember my dad crying. I remember my grandfather crying because of all the things that they deal with. And when they told me, you don't understand what it means to see them win in a city like this with everything that's going on. It makes them get through the day. And I've seen a bunch of trends and TikTok videos of like the last time the Yankees won, I was 6 or whatever, and like the Yankees, like it's not me that's watching the game, it's me. And then you scroll over to the next picture and it's me as a little kid. Or it's them as a little kid, excuse me. Like this is the little kid in me is the Yankee fan within. So that's why the Yankees mean so much to a lot of us. And I'm sure the same thing goes for the Dodgers and any sports city, when your team competes for a championship. All bandwagoners are excluded. I'm not talking about people that are here for the clicks, especially now social media and the influencers, or people that just live there and cheer for them. No. People that are invested and that watch, that buy the apparel, that go through the ups and the downs and the frustrations of the winning and losing seasons. The Yankees are the most spoiled fan base in all of sports. 27 championships in over 100 years of existence. That is over 25% of success. That is very hard to do. And I grew up in an era where it was consistent. When we were born in the 90s, from 94 and 95 for the two of us being born respectively, the Yankees were either in or winning a World Series. I was alive for 5 championships, just like you were alive for 6 of Tom Brady's in New England. So you know what it means to be spoiled as a fan.
Mm-hmm.
To go this far without even being in the World Series. It is a dream to where the moment Soto caught that ball, man, I remember being a kid. I remember being in high school, and I remember seeing the faces of the family that I was with, that some of them are no longer here. So, you know, some of it has to do with, you know, a little bit more of emotion than sports. But if the Yankees find a way to bring a championship back home, it will make a lot of people happy, more so to relive the greatest times of our lives.
That was well said. That was well said. I think, you know, the point that you brought up about you know, New England winning, you know, 6 in what, 18 years. It was like 20, it was 2001 to 2019. That was the year that Brady won his last one in New England. And you know, like for me, like, you know, I look back at that time a little bit differently, just because like I knew like after Super Bowl 53, that one really kind of felt like it was gonna be the last one. But it, and that was despite the fact that the year after we had such an electric start, because we had that was the year we had like Josh Gordon, Antonio Brown, Julian Edelman. Bro, we were freaking
You were
stacked.
moving.
And then it all fell apart. But you know, I look back at that time, like at that run, and I'm not really sad that it's over. Obviously, like you look at New England now, they're nowhere near what they used to be. Everybody knows that. But I'm glad that I was able to witness it. I can look back fondly at that period of time from 2001 to
You're appreciative
2019.
and grateful it happened.
100%. And I think this is the one thing that I think New England fans, I think this is something to their advantage that Cowboy fans don't, they have never learned. Know your role. Like I think New England knows how to stay in their lane. Cowboys fans don't.
Nope.
And I think when you look at New England fans now, are they out on social media? Are they out and about with the same level of arrogance or the same level of bravado like we used to? No, we're not going out here and saying that we're like one step away from the Super Bowl. I mean, Dallas says that every single year, but I don't see Dallas getting to a Super Bowl anytime soon.
Hell no.
And nobody sees that. But I think New England fans at this point where the team is, I think they're just happy that they were able to witness that run. And you know, granted, everybody's subjective when it comes to this, but I don't think we will ever see a run like that ever again in NFL history. The only team that I could think that could probably do something like that is probably Kansas City, because they already have 3. And Pat's
And
in
a
the middle of
back-to-back.
it, and Pat is in the middle of his career, and it kind of seems like that franchise is on a very similar trajectory that New England was on when they were going through it. There's a lot of parallels that I see with our run compared to Kansas City. It really is kind of crazy how things are kind of lining up with how they're doing things. It's just, I think New England, once it was over, I think we just accepted it. I think we accepted it. That's like it's one of the best runs, if not the best run that you will ever see from an NFL football team. And that's why you don't see Patriot fans saying and beating on their chest, basically saying like, you know, we're this great team right now. We're not. We all accept that. But we will always look extremely fondly on that run and just the level of appreciation that we had for Tom, for Bill, and everybody that was a part of those championship years. And really just like that championship run in particular, like just that dynasty run in particular. Like that's just me when it comes to the Patriots. Obviously, when it comes to the Yankees with you, it's a little bit different. It's been 15 years since The
Yeah,
Yankees
but
have made
you
a
had a
World Series.
good enough gap though. Like your last one prior to Brady having that resurgence with like Randy Moss and all of them, like before you started winning again, was like what, 03, 04, right?
Yeah, but the thing is, we had been to 2 Super Bowls in between. We went to the one in 2007. That was the undefeated season. And
Yeah,
then
true.
in 2011. So at least we
Right,
made
right.
it to it. We made it to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, fair, fair.
So and
I was trying to
and
correlate it with the drought of like not winning one, but then I remembered you had
it was
been
it was
two
10
of them.
years. Like it was 10 years. No, I totally understand. It was a 10-year run where yeah, we were competitive. We just didn't win it. With you, it's a little bit different with the Yankees because they hadn't actually physically made it to the World Series in 15 years. Granted, they've looked a lot better the last 5-6 years. They've been
Yeah,
competitive.
since Judge and them have actually come on, yeah.
Yeah, it's just that it was the Astros. It's just like that seemed to be the one team that you guys could not get over the hump against. I know there's a whole cheating shit that comes along with it, but I'm just saying like that was the one team that was the one juggernaut that was in front of you guys. Because if you don't have the Astros, you guys are probably going to multiple World Series.
100%. And there's I'm not again, I am not someone that likes to make excuses. The point is point blank period. We did not execute, we did not win. Cheating aside, there were plenty of other opportunities where we could have done something against another team and didn't happen. So that, again, that's fine. So we need to make the best of this opportunity right now in 2024. We're going up against the best team in baseball. They have home field advantage. We need to take one from LA, and then we have three at home. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like we're going to win all three games at home, but that is why they made it 2-3-2 so
I
that
like
the
that. I
away
like that
team
format.
does have an opportunity to get on some kind of a roll with the home crowd. So we'll see what happens. I would assume it is going to be Cole on the mound for game one, and we'll play it by ear. But just know it's unfortunate though, because I'll be working game one and game two at my second job, so I'll be watching it from work, and I'll be insanely distracted because, of course, it's a Halloween themed party on Friday for my other job, so it's gonna be a
Yeah.
pain in the ass. But nevertheless, I digress. I'm happy we're here. I'm excited that we're there. If we win, we win. If we lose, at sports, I'm going to be emotionally distraught. I'll be upset. The city will be upset. I'm not going to pretend like I won't cry either way. But the fact that we're here showed that we can do it. I just know and I have faith that somehow, some way, if the Yankees can pull it off, that city is going to erupt like no other.
The only thing I can kind of think of, like when it comes to, like the level of stress that you're gonna have, like before these games actually take place. I know I think we talked about this before, but I vividly remember when I went to the Super Bowl. That was the COVID year when the Bucks went up against the Chiefs.
Mhm.
When when he got his first Super Bowl in Tampa. He was the only one he got in Tampa. But I understand like that Super Bowl was a little bit different because it was the whole COVID era and there weren't that stadium was only about like a third of the way full for that game. But I had never felt like that level of stress or that level of anxiety before any game. I had seen 6 Super Bowl wins from New England. They went to the Super Bowl what, 8 times? Was it 8 or 9 times? I forget at this point.
Eight. He's got
Yeah.
no. It's 9 because he's got 1 to Foles and 2 to Eli.
Yeah. So okay, it was 9. I lost count there for a second. But I mean, 9 appearances prior to that. But actually being there at that game, I never felt anything like it when it came to like, oh my God, like I'm getting butterflies for this game. I'm not even playing. I'm just sitting here and
You're
watching. I'm
not
not even
even a Bucks fan. You were a Tom Brady fan.
I
So that's
like
what's even weirder.
I'm just like I never felt that level of stress. And I know going into this series against the Dodgers, I understand it is going to be that same level of stress before every single game. That level of anxiety, like that level of anticipation, it's going to be crazy. So the only difference is that, one of these teams has to win 4 games to be able to win the series. With the Super Bowl,
Correct.
it's just literally one game. But, yeah, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be a great World Series as far as I'm concerned. And I'm really looking forward to it. So when does it actually start? Because I don't.
Friday.
Okay. All right. So at least I have something to look forward to on Friday.
Yes,
But,
sir.
but Kev, I think that pretty much wraps it up. So I think we pretty much covered everything on the slate today. If you got anything more to add, chime in, but I'm pretty much good on this side.
No, man, definitely good over here. Definitely, we covered a lot. We ended up, I ended up dragging out a lot of our segments.
You were
So
getting spicy. You were getting spicy tonight.
I was a little hot, you know what I'm saying? But it is what it is. Sometimes that makes or breaks a podcast like ours. But I live and die with some of my opinions. So it is what it is. But overall, guys, sorry we took 2 weeks off. We had to deal with some things and then obviously work and stuff like that. So
Hurricanes.
happy to be back, and we're gonna continue to put out content. Obviously, we're gonna make sure that we get some shorts out there, and then as the week progresses, if anything else transpires, we'll let you know. I know for a fact, like I said, the World Series starts Friday. It's Friday, Saturday games 1 and 2. Sunday we're off, and then it's back on Monday. And I know we try to normally record on Monday, but because the Yankee game will be Monday at 8, I don't know if there will be any content coming out, at least not from my end. And I do apologize in advance, but I will be locked the fuck in on a Monday night, if you get what I'm saying. So we'll figure it out. We'll play it by ear. But if content needs to come out, I'm sure Kyle and I will we'll buckle up and we'll get it done however we have to.
Yeah, we'll organize something.
Yeah, but other than that, again, thank you for the support. We appreciate it, whatever platform it's coming from. I know it's been inconsistent since we started back up, but between natural disasters and our personal and work lives, it does get a little difficult. So we're doing the best that we can. But again, we do appreciate the support, and we will see you guys soon.
Yeah, take it easy, you guys.